Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, with our second topic today. We're discussing the joint cooperation between Egypt and the Maldives to confront the effect of the climate change and the environmental monitoring through signing agreements and memorandum of understanding. To shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have this phone with Dr. Mohsen, environment and energy expert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Dr. Mohsen, what is the aim and the importance of signing a memorandum of understanding between Egypt and the Maldives in the field of climate change and environment monitoring?
Right. I think it's good to start with putting things in perspective and shedding some light on what the Maldives is. It's an archipelago made of about 1,200 small islands. Only 200 of them are inhabited. And almost half of their gross domestic product comes from tourism, from visitors from all countries of the world. And also, an important point to bring the picture is that more than 2/3 of the population of the Maldives live only within 100 meters from the coast. So whenever, of course, the sea level rise due to climate change happens, that will endanger the livelihood of the majority of the population there, and it will affect the tourism, et cetera, et cetera. So it is really the country that is most vulnerable to climate change and most threatened, if you like. Okay, now we shed the light a bit on the Maldives. They have really started seriously about 15 years ago to take action, and they are working on reducing their own emissions. But of course, their own emissions are really very, very small compared to the other countries of the world. So what they are trying to do is to make a lot of connections and a lot of agreements with many countries. Like you just said, we just signed with them, Egypt has just signed with them, and a memorandum of understanding to work together and to really exchange experiences, etc., to avoid climate change and to reduce emissions. But the Maldives has been really active in connecting with the International Monetary Fund, with the UNESCO, with Gulf countries, for example. Over the last 2 years, they signed with Saudi Arabia, they signed with the Emirates, etc. So coming back to the important point, which is the cooperation between Egypt and the Maldives. This, of course, will be very beneficial because we will learn from each other's experiences. For example, the Maldives has really advanced very much in waste management, which is something very, very important to reduce emissions and really avoid the bad effects of climate change.
Yes, so in what sectors is the cooperation between the two countries they are aiming at working on, and what are the ministries from both countries that are going to be working with each other and coordinating in order to provide help and to abide by the memorandum of understanding?
Well, primarily it's going to be waste management because, of course, it's a problem that every country has. And we here in Egypt especially are confronted with this problem of waste management, recycling, stopping the single plastic use, and really protecting the Nile, for example, cleaning it from the debris and cleaning also the coastal areas. So this is going to be one of the main cooperation lines, if you like, or activities. Secondly, protecting the shorelines, because also in Egypt here we face a problem with climate seawater level because especially on the Mediterranean, we have 1,000 kilometers on the Mediterranean, and we of course have to start like the Maldives did. We have to start to put some walls and make sure that when sea level rises by a meter by 2050, we will have our shoreline protected. Our coral reefs will continue to survive because, of course, it's very important to keep all the aquarium life in good condition and so on. So the cooperation will be waste management, coastal protection, etc.
Yes. Dr. Mohsen, also you've just mentioned that Egypt could suffer from the sea level in the coming future, far future, of course, concerning the cities that lies on the Mediterranean Sea, like Alexandria. So the threats that Egypt is suffering from, is it also the same as the threats that the Maldives are suffering from in the field of climate change?
The Maldives, of course, is more threatened because, like I was saying, more than half of the population, or two-thirds of the population of the Maldives, live within 100 meters from the coastline. So sea level rise in such archipelago of islands, which is really, they have no mountains, they have no high land. It's all only 1 meter, the majority of the land inhabited in the Maldives. It's just 1 meter above the current sea level. So by 2050, if climate change and continues, there will be an increase in the sea level by 1 meter. So it's really a huge threat for the Maldives. We are, fortunately, we have a threat on the Mediterranean coastline, but it is less dangerous, if you like, than what the Maldives is facing, because, of course, we have cities along the coastline of the Mediterranean, but also we are not as vulnerable as they are.
Yes. Dr. Mohsen, how would the Maldives benefit from the Memorandum of Understanding with Egypt, which, as Egypt, of course, plays a pivotal role in the Middle East and in Africa, and actually Egypt was speaking Africa during the COP27.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we in Egypt here have generated a lot of expertise, practical expertise, through a number of actions like stopping single plastic use, like enriching and protecting the coral reef life and the creatures in the sea and so on, which is something very important to every country in the world. Of course, Egypt is very important, especially along the Red Sea coast, and it is very relevant to the Maldives. So I think this would be one of the main areas of cooperation and technical expertise exchange, and how to really protect the marine life and to protect the coral reef, which is something very important for us, for humanity, but extremely important for the Maldives.
Yes. Egypt is back to Africa, and Africa is back to Egypt. And as I just mentioned, that Egypt was speaking Africa during the COP27, and Egypt is in Africa, which is the continent that is least responsible for the climate change and affecting the environment. Is it the same case with the Maldives?
Yeah, of course. And like you said, the African continent has only contributed less than 4% of the emissions that are responsible for climate change,
Yes.
but it's a continent that is suffering the most from the repercussions of climate change. So it's, of course, very, very important, and COP27 was very successful in emphasizing this point that, for example, creating the loss and damage fund, which is quite important, and it's really what the lost and damage fund is about, is that the countries, industrialized countries that are responsible for the emissions that it started climate change, will finance the countries that are in the African countries and help them protect themselves against climate change, like the Maldives, for example, building walls and protection and so on,
Yes.
and many other projects to reduce emissions, to help, if you like, reduce the damages of climate change in the African continent.
Yes. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Amr Mohsen, environment and energy expert. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. And with this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this episode of The Breakfast Show. I was in the company of my colleague Mahisi Rabia. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.